Let's talk about two of your most recent books, and these are not necessarily published on Amazon yet, but you've written them and they're spreading around. One is about placebos, which I think in its purest form is almost what we were talking about earlier, this idea of telling a story around a product or service, except in the placebo's case, it's pure story around almost inconsequential product. And so, how and not, this is not necessarily a bad thing. People, you mentioned people actually get helped by placebos. The wine tastes better when they're told it's an expensive wine, but it's still, and there's all this scientific evidence about it, but it's still a placebo. It still has no real effect.
Yeah, I'm not buying that, and that's why I wrote the book. You can find it if you type placebo book, Seth Godin. It's free. I don't buy that last sentence at all. I think that a placebo delivered with good intent is one of the most powerful things we can do in any field. And I do not think it's okay to poo-poo it and say it's just a placebo. It's only a placebo. The problem with a double-blind scientific test is we are not blind. We are not double-blind. We are able to see. And given that we are able to see, our job, if we want to help other people, is to create an environment and a story that makes people better. And even if you're not a scientist, you are capable of making people better by the way you talk and act and the stories you bring into the world.
So essentially, and I think this is more important than ever in today's day and age, because now everything is about how you communicate, whether it's on email or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Placebo does become a powerful way to spread a marketing message. So how would you use it now if you were selling something?
Well, I start, and I say this over and over again in the book, to say the essence of an ethical placebo is when the person you have marketed to finds out it was a placebo, will they be angry with you? And if the answer to that is yes, then you haven't used it ethically. You've deceived people for your own personal gain.
So give me an ethical example.
An ethical example. So I am selling stereo equipment. I am selling stereo speakers. And I have two ways I can make my speakers. One way I can make them is to make them look substantial and solid and sound good when I wrap them on the side and make them heavy. And the other way I can make them is have them look flimsy and not have impact visually. We know that the first speaker will sound better. And if I can offer that to somebody and I want them to enjoy listening to the stereo, I ought to do that. I should not say, no, you must do a double-blind study. I can prove that mine are better even though you don't want them to be. What we need to do is acknowledge that the person came to us with a problem, their stereo doesn't sound good. We can make it better in a way that once they know all the science, they'll still be glad we did that, right? Or I think about somebody who's trying to market their company. One way to market your company is by spamming people, calling them at home on the phone, ringing the doorbell, and proving that your product is better. And it's not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is we judged you before we got to see the results. We judged you before we got to see the science. And what we are judging you on is the fact that you're acting like a selfish jerk, and we are unlikely to resonate with that, and therefore your product isn't going to work as well as the product that is sold to us by somebody we trust.
But okay, so let's take an example. Beats by Dr. Dre.
Sure.
The product might not be better than other products out there, but it's got this story that Dr. Dre is behind it. Is there a placebo effect happening there?
There's no question that Beats headphones do not sound as good as Sennheiser headphones in any reasonable test. Yet, people who go to the store and try them both on often buy the Beats. Well, are we to say to those people, you're deaf? How dare you? No. We need to say to them, oh, I get it. You care about how they look. I get it. You care about how people like you think about people like you when they see them wearing Beats. Oh, I get it. You like to tell yourself a story that you can afford a $300 pair of headphones. What's wrong with that? We gave that person the joy and the satisfaction and the control and the authority to pick something that made them feel taller, cooler, handsomer, and more connected.
So again, it's back to what you learned with that 13-year-old girl in canoeing. It's back to the storytelling. It's essentially how you package what you feel is an important service, but still build an extra dimension of story around it that is appealing to a larger body of people.
Because you're going to be judged anyway. If we were all MIT, MBA graduates who did nothing but math, then math would win. But what wins, what changes people's minds, is the story and the way we think of them.
So for instance, if you were going to launch a new product, like a restaurant, how would you make use of this to think about how you would market it, how you would tell the story, and so on?
Well, different stories for different people. So one of the things that you'll notice among a certain group of people is that the restaurant they want to go to is the restaurant they cannot get into. So one of the things you do to launch a successful restaurant for those people is promote it to the right people at the beginning so it's always full, and make it really hard to get a reservation. Now, you would think that from a utility point of view, that's not as good a restaurant as a restaurant you can just walk in and have just as good a meal. But in fact, it's that vibe and that feeling that makes the food there taste better, right? Mm. Another example of storytelling is scientists are happy to say we need to do something about global warming. Problem is global is a happy word and warming is a happy word. And we are going to see millions and millions of people die because they didn't understand the placebo effect in storytelling, and they didn't call it atmosphere cancer, because that's what it is. It's a chronic degenerative disease of the atmosphere that's caused by an external force that's going to kill us like a cancer. But atmosphere cancer doesn't feel scientific, so we called it global warming, and as a result, it didn't resonate with a lot of people.
That's interesting. So essentially, you would use this, understanding this knowledge would allow a businessman to better package an idea, a concept, a business, whatever. If
they have right intent. But if you do it when you have wrong intent, then you are manipulating people, and what will happen in the end is they will become bitter, they will not trust you, and you will degrade our entire craft.